I'm Jim Halpert.
Spot on.
A little comment.
Among the many outsized personalities of The Office, Jim Halpert is the voice of reason. He's the one the cameras, and thus the audience, turn to as our most reliable source for commentary on his coworkers' antics.
Once a year, Dwight holds a seminar updating us on the newest developments in the world of karate. Because, as we all know, the one thing that 1,000-year-old martial arts do all the time is change. Andy Bernard made these tasteful hats.
Always making faces to the camera, he's like the consciousness of The Office itself.
He's always looking at the camera like this. What is that?
Grounding the crazier moments at Dunder Mifflin with a rational perspective that we can enter the show through.
So I either get more involved or I take a sick day. Leaving Dwight in charge. Oh God.
But while Jim often sees right through his coworkers,
How'd that get there?
he's notably less perceptive about himself. He spends years pining for Pam, lying to himself, and making questionable choices that hurt other people. He hates his job, but can't motivate himself to do anything about it.
If I advance any higher in this company, then this would be my career. And if this were my career, I'd have to throw myself in front of a train.
Time and again, Jim seems more content to comment on his lot in life than take any sort of action to change it.
She's engaged.
BFD, engaged ain't married.
So why is this character, who understands other people's lives so intuitively, paralyzed when it comes to his own? Do his skills of observation and ability to find the humor in things actually prevent him from getting what he really wants? The answers to these questions not only explain the paradox of Jim Halpert, they also show us how Jim's story embodies the core message of the show.
There's only one thing that will make you give up on everything you thought you knew. Every rational calculation.
Some sort of virus?
Love.
So here's our take on The Office's Jim Halpert, the guy who sees everything clearly except himself.
And on the flip side, I've been so busy watching him that I haven't even started work. That's exhausting, being this vigilant. I'll probably have to go home early today.
You're watching The Take. Thanks for watching, and be sure to share and subscribe.
This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. It's like your own personal film festival streaming anytime, anywhere. If The Office were a classic play, Jim Halpert would be its raisonneur. Translated from French, it means the reasoner, or the reasonable one.
One day Michael came in complaining about a speed bump on the highway. I wonder who he ran over then.
In theater and literature, the raisonneur expresses the detached, omniscient point of view of the author.
I can't tell why a snail has a house.
Why?
Why, to keep's head in. Not to give it away to his daughters and leave his horns without a case.
On The Office, Jim is the one we rely on the most to give us context as events unfold.
Let me be more specific. Michael ate an entire family-sized chicken pot pie for lunch, and then he promptly fell asleep.
He's also the character who provides us with the most insight into the other characters.
Around here, Oscar is known as Actually, because he will insert himself into just about any conversation to add facts or correct grammar.
Jim knows his colleagues so well, he can sum up their essence.
And you are all about authority.
Or even predict their actions.
Michael stands in the front of the boat and says that he's king of the world within the first hour, or I give you my next paycheck.
I'm king of the world! Woo!
One way of interpreting Jim's superior insight is through what psychologists call theory of mind. According to this idea, humans evolved to have the ability and the need to interpret other people's behavior, to attribute thoughts and feelings to others. Essentially, we learned to be mind readers.
Well, tensions were high in the kitchen.
I could tell from the body language.
In 2008, literary scholar Lisa Sunshine applied this theory to the original British version of The Office. And in 2016, Evan Pushak, aka the Nerd Writer, elaborated on this idea in a video essay where he illustrated that David Brent's weak theory of mind, his inability to accurately judge others' feelings about him, is the source of much of the show's comedy.
Good to have you all here from Swindon, because I hear they dropped an atomic bomb on Swindon. About 15 quid's worth of damage. Right, okay.
Just as the Nerd Writer noted about Jim's British counterpart, Tim, Jim has a strong theory of mind. He's a very good mind reader.
Phyllis says the same 12 cliches every time it rains.
Meanwhile, characters like Dwight, Andy, and especially Michael have a poor theory of mind. They frequently misunderstand both what others are thinking and how their own behavior comes off.
I say we fill Michael's office with bees. My apiarist owes me a favor.
So you do good work, or?
No, Jim, I use a bad apiarist.
Jim exploits this when pranking Dwight.
Did you feel like crying?
No.
I'm just gonna write held back tears.
Jim functions as a proxy for the audience. When we feel bemusement or disbelief, so does Jim. When we are surprised or disgusted, so is Jim. Just like us, Jim is primarily an observer.
Last night on Trading Spouses, have you seen it?
No, I have a life.
Interesting. What's that like?
You should try it sometime.
Wow. But then who would watch my TV?
But while we in the audience are observing a TV show, Jim frequently relegates himself to being an observer of his own life. And over time, that tendency to remove himself takes its toll.
I'm gonna get out of town for a while and go someplace not here.
When he's excited about something like the Office Olympics, he gets really into it and he does a really great job. But the problem with Jim is that he works here, so...
While Jim is very insightful about other people's lives, he often has trouble figuring out what to do with his own. From the moment we meet him, it's clear he doesn't enjoy his work.
I'm boring myself just talking about this.
But despite being dissatisfied and underchallenged,
Every so often, Jim dies of boredom.
For a long time, Jim makes no effort to get out of his rut, and even turns down opportunities to change his situation.
If I left, what would I do with all this useless information in my head? Pam's favorite flavor of yogurt, which is mixed berry.
He shows the same indecision when it comes to Pam. While he's clearly romantically interested in her, he chooses to remain in denial for years.
I used to have a crush on Pam, and now I don't. Riveting.
He even dates other people he knows he can't commit to.
Do you still have feelings for her?
Yes.
And while he gives good personal advice to other characters, he doesn't see that he should be taking it himself.
You gotta take a chance on something sometime, Pam. I mean, do you want to be a receptionist here always?
It often seems as though Jim approaches his problems with the same detachment he has towards everything else. Jim's persona is so steeped in irony, he says the literal opposite of what he means all the time.
I still love that after 7 years.
This defense mechanism is a means of ensuring that he, Jim, is always in on the joke.
What'd you do?
Kevin, hands down.
Yet for all that he mocks others, Jim works hard to avoid being ridiculed himself, or do anything that might bring him embarrassment or scrutiny.
Jim, you're not dressed up at all.
Sure am. I am one of the Men in Black guys. Can I have your sunglasses?
If you are especially skilled at inferring someone's thoughts accurately from their behavior, like Jim is, then you can also form a fairly good idea of how they see you. And you can use this information to adapt your own behavior to influence that perception.
Jim, for instance, has a huge tell. When he gets a good hand, he coughs.
It's the weirdest thing. Every time I cough, he folds.
But this can be exhausting, which is why Jim's acute awareness of others' perceptions is also a curse. He's keenly aware of being interpreted and judged by his colleagues, by the documentary crew, or even by us, the audience.
I'm sure it's fine. It's a blue shirt.
Oh, yeah, but I'm wondering if it's too blue. Like, am I making a statement with the blueness?
When he does reveal things about himself, it's usually by accident, like when the documentarians catch him on camera at a bad time, or when he designs an alternative existence for himself in the computer game Second Life.
You're a sports writer in Philadelphia? Nice build, too.
Yep. Why don't we go back to the animation?
No, I want to see more of Philly Jim.
It's no surprise that the most touching, intimate moments of Jim's and Pam's romance are witnessed from afar, when he doesn't feel he's being watched. As the novelist Edward St. Aubyn observed in the Patrick Melrose series, irony can be abused like a drug. Quote, "Forget heroin, just try giving up irony. That deep down need to mean two things at once, to be in two places at once, not to be there for the catastrophe of a fixed meaning." Jim often seems afraid of exactly this, the catastrophe of actually meaning what he says, being exposed and vulnerable.
Okay, we didn't dance. And I was totally joking anyway. I mean, it's not really a date if the girl goes home to her fiance. Right?
But by inoculating himself with irony against the possibility of getting hurt, Jim also gives himself a false sense of security. His passivity and evasiveness prevent him from expressing what he really wants or needs, thus stunting his growth.
I mean, I've always subscribed to the idea that if you really want to impress your boss, you go in there and you do mediocre work, half-heartedly.
Jim's tragedy is that for a long time, he chooses to laugh at his life rather than live it.
I'm in an office relationship. It's special. She's nice, she's shy. Oh my God, put on a shirt.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Fleabag also explores whether its heroine can overcome her reflex to detach from and comment on her reality instead of fully engaging with it.
He's a bit annoying, actually.
What is that?
What?
That thing that you're doing, it's like you disappear.
What?
What are you not telling me?
And in the office, it's only when Jim begins to transition from observing to doing, when he allows himself to say what he really means, that his life finally starts to change.
Are you free for dinner tonight?
Yes.
All right. Then it's a date. Having fun is not nearly as important as being good to the people who you really care about.
When Jim finally puts himself out there and goes for it with Pam, he seems to have turned a corner and transitioned from watcher on the sidelines to active player. But while he undergoes big life changes in the years that follow, many of his defining actions are still governed by inertia, or are in fact reactions to external pressures.
Ryan put me on probation, so I am about to do something very bold at this job that I've never done before. Try.
He only advocates for a promotion after it's revealed that he and Pam have a baby on the way. And instead of reaching for something he'd find more fulfilling, he goes for the safe choice, not unlike buying his parents' house.
So Jim, you're gonna live in the same house that you used to pee the bed in.
Yeah, I guess technically, Kev, you're right.
But then, in the series' final season, after all those safe choices have created a stable life, Jim has second thoughts.
With work and 2 kids, nothing interesting is gonna happen to us for a long time.
He's suddenly motivated to take a big leap.
I started a new business with my college friend.
At last, Jim appears to be taking initiative and pursuing the ambitions he's always ignored. He's even pretty much approximating the ideal existence he created for his Second Life avatar, Philly Jim.
First board meeting. Also the first time I've ever been excited about work. So that feels wrong.
Soon, though, the distance his choices create between him and Pam, both physical and emotional, takes its toll. And this is a clue that the whole athlete adventure is really an extension of his instinct to detach from Dunder Mifflin and even from Pam. After all, his impulse to jump into that business wasn't really driven first by passion, but by fear of stagnation.
If he doesn't watch himself, he's gonna be here for years, doing nothing. Wow, maybe Pete is the new Jim.
In the end, faced with the deterioration of his marriage, Jim chooses his family over his career.
So you gotta ask yourself, what makes you the happiest? Just go all in for what's most important. That's my new thing.
Even though Pam eventually helps Jim have both, his decision illustrates the reason Jim's various attempts at stepping up in his career never give him the meaning he thinks they should. His life's purpose is already there, in the people he loves.
I mean, that's just pretty killer, right?
Most of the times when Jim actually takes pride in his work, his motivation to push himself comes from being a husband and a dad.
I'm on the first hot sale streak of my life. I think it all comes from feeding Cece because no matter how much she resists, I sell her those carrots.
And his friends at the office and the daily fun he has with them are why he stays so long at Dunder Mifflin, even when, from the outside, it makes no sense. Over the years, his rivalry with Dwight especially blossoms into a defining friendship.
Dwight has made me his bestish mensch, which is Shroot for best man.
And Dwight's impressive ability to lose himself in his passions, a characteristic Jim once saw as so ridiculous, gradually helps inspire Jim to overcome his own addiction to ironic detachment. So while early Jim feels the need to distance himself and feel superior to his colleagues, he finds fulfillment not in breaking free from Dunder Mifflin, but by learning to appreciate the people within it.
I'll tell you what I could accept is assistant to the regional manager. That is a real job and one I'd be proud to take.
Just as the raisonneur typically articulates the point of view of the author, Jim's narrative arc expresses the overarching ethos of The Office.
People around you are basically who you end up spending your life with. I mean, because of where my desk was, I spent all those years looking at Pam, and I fell in love, so that stuff matters.
Through spending all those years at Dunder Mifflin, largely as an observer of his coworkers, he learns to love them, just as we do.
And then tomorrow, I can tell you what a great boss you turned out to be.
He sees their true beauty, despite their foibles and even against the backdrop of humdrum corporate existence. And in them, he finally sees himself.
Everything I have, I owe to this job. This stupid, wonderful, boring, amazing job.
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about all of our new videos. This video is brought to you by Mubi, a streaming service we love. Every day, Mubi premieres a new film. Whether it's a movie you've been dying to see or one you've never heard of before, there is always something new to discover. So in this world where it's very easy to spend hours debating what you should watch, Mubi is like having a really cool friend with amazing taste in movies, making it so much easier for you. They feature hard-to-come-by masterpieces, indie festival darlings, influential art house and foreign films, lesser-known films by your favorite famous directors, and more. Plus, you can even download the films to watch offline, and there are no ads, ever. This month on Mubi, you can check out Southland Tales, director Richard Kelly's epic follow-up to Donnie Darko. Set in a dystopian Los Angeles, this now infamous cult film features an amazing ensemble cast which includes The Rock, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Justin Timberlake, and many, many more. We can't recommend Mubi highly enough. You can try it out now for free for a whole month. Just click the link in the description below.